Hello everyone and welcome back into our home. The name of the channel is The Vegan Homestead. I'm John and right now we are going to talk all about vegan soil. Kristen and I have been gardening for about 3 years now and we are always trying to do any sort of gardening without the use of any animal products. At least in this area of central New York, every product that we looked into had some sort of manure product, mostly from chicken, but there were also cow and horse manures widely present in the bagged soils and seed starter products. The problem isn't the product itself. Putting things back into the soil helps keep it healthy in the circle of life. The problem we have is where these products come from and who profits from these products. Chances are any of these animal products that are sold in the retail stores come from factory farming, and of course if you do a lot of research you'll see that the animals are not treated well in those conditions. As vegans, we really don't want to contribute to the animal suffering at all. And so this has been one of those problem areas where at the very beginning of growing, using a fertilized mix is great for starting seeds. However, supporting the right companies along the way is very important to both Kristen and I, and maybe you too. And that's why we really wanted to do this video. Last year, Jay and I thought we found a bagged soil that was completely vegan. It was made somewhere near Ithaca, but after we shot that video, we found out that that company actually uses a small amount of chicken manure as well. So we were really bummed out about that. If you can't find soil that's completely vegan or it has a small amount of manure, I wouldn't say it's the end of the world. At least you're growing your own food and that's a huge plus. I had such a great time hanging out with Joe at his vegan homestead last fall that I really been wanting to communicate with him a lot more, and I finally had the chance last week to talk to him. He kind of told me what he was doing at his homestead right now and what I should start doing as well. We covered a lot of topics on the actual Skype call, but I edited all the soil parts together just because I feel like that's a great starting point, especially since we're gonna be making our own seed starting mix in the next couple of days. This video is a whole lot of talking. If you're more of a hands-on person, then make sure you check out our next video that we post. We'll show you all the products that we're gonna use to create our seed starter mix. Before we get into that Skype call, please give Kristen and I a follow on Instagram. Kristen's always posting behind the scenes stories. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's jump right into the Skype call. Joe, first of all, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I don't know if you're getting a lot of snow down there, but we have 15 inches our way right now, so.
It's just starting here. I think we're supposed to get 8 inches here or so.
Okay. Before we get into everything, what have you been doing to prep for this year's growing season? Anything yet, or are you just hanging out?
Oh gosh, I'm still in total hangout mode. I'm not, last year was a really terrible drought combined with, me trying to grow a bit more than probably I normally would have. But it was fun. It was great. It was a good experience. So I'm still trying to figure out the scale of what's going to happen this year and exactly like what the kind of greater context is going to be. Because, when I was a little bit younger, I would just go, what am I going to do? I'm going to grow all the food I possibly can, right? That's not always the smartest thing to do if you have a lot of responsibilities. So what I'm trying to do now is fixate on what do I like to grow, what is easy to grow, and what do I think is going to, integrate comfortably into how much time I can allocate, right? So I'm still trying to figure those things out, but I am already beginning to get some idea. I'm going to go heavy on potatoes again, heavy on brassicas again. I like potatoes and brassicas. I'm going to do the obligatory black beans because I have to. There's some staples I know I'm going to do, but overall, I'm still in total hangout mode. I have not gone crazy with anything yet. I'm just focusing on construction projects.
That's awesome because that's kind of where I'd like to be this time of year every year. Right now, I'm kind of just focusing on making my house a little bit more livable. The house I bought is a little grimy, so my wife and I are kind of focusing on that, and I'm focusing on working at the sanctuary every day as well. So I am starting to gear up, though, towards thinking spring. Every year I have the same question, and Jay and I were scratching our heads last year. We thought we found an organic seed starting mix, and it turned out it actually had like poultry manure. Yeah. So I guess my main question is, what is someone like me going to do? I just moved into a new house. I've got a half acre of land, a little more. I made the mistake of trying to start seeds out of just soil in my garden, which brought in funguses, and it retained too much moisture. So I ran into a lot of problems last spring when I was living back in Syracuse. What is there anything that I can do, or is there any product that you recommend for someone like me getting started?
This is a gigantic topic, right?
I know.
I ran full steam into this years ago. The first couple years, I think I was, without my awareness, actually using a seed starting mix that I was told was fungal compost, and it was actually poultry. And that broke my heart. I mean, the whole point of me doing specifically what I am doing is so that I feel that I've got total control over the process, and that I'm also, incorporating effectively zero animal input at all steps, all the time. I don't remember the exact name, but it's one of the more popular ones. It comes in the big bricks, the big bales. This was after me making, a half dozen phone calls to different places and different, agricultural supply stores, in the region. I think I drove like 30 miles to get the stuff, and I tried to buy a couple years worth. And as it turns out, I used it the first couple years. This is, years ago. And it wasn't until I was needing to order more, because I only had a little bit left, that I discovered that it had a small amount. But I called the factory direct, and I talked to like a rep. And because I started hearing more and more about the trouble you're facing, and I'm sure other people are facing too, where it's really hard to find in particular, an organic seed starting mix in a big bale or even in a bag that doesn't have animals in it somehow, right? I wound up getting an email back from the supplier, and they said, yeah, we have 2.9% crude weight of I think there's a specific term, poultry scratch, I think, or they said something very specific. And I looked that up, and that term could have meant anything from just poultry droppings from big battery houses all the way to literally like everything on the floor, including dead birds. And that freaked me out. Thus began a process that I'm still working on, that is probably going to be a little bit more trial and error for sure. I started thinking about this in the standpoint of, okay, like outside in nature, everything grows crazy and there's no like potting mix, right? But these are plants and things like that are acclimated to just growing inside, like, whatever the native environment is right outside. And so we're trying to control all the variables, right? Some plants don't even really need any kind of nutrition at all for the seed starting phase. Like if you're doing like sunflower sprouts, you can sprout them in sand or water and you'll get a sprout and you can eat it, right? Other things are a little more tricky. So if you think about what a seed starting mix usually is, it's usually a fairly light, well-drained, heavy in the peat, very, very light, fluffy soil, and they usually inoculate it with some kind of inoculated manure product. And it's usually a really small amount, like if you imagine buying one of those big bales that had the chicken manure in it, it probably only has like a liter of chicken manure actually in it, because the seeds, it's not meant to be a complete nutrition for a plant. It's meant to get them up, get them out of the ground, get some green, and then get them out in the field or get them in the greenhouse or however you're going to grow them. I've discovered you can actually mimic this fairly well with what you have on hand. So here's what I do. This will not always work, but this is what has worked surprisingly well for me. If you do have some compost available, I would recommend making a 3-part mix. 1 part sand, 1 part coconut coir or peat. Peat is a little controversial because it's kind of a limited resource.
Right.
It's definitely better than coconut coir, but coconut coir works really well.
And it's sustainable, right?
And it's sustainable. I do think peat is superior, and so, but I'm using coir personally, even though I think peat's better. And then 1 part screened compost from last year. And the compost is almost going to look like dirt, if it's sat under snow for, the whole winter, it's going to be really well broken down. And when I say screened compost, I mean, you take a piece of hardware cloth, and preferably fairly fine. You want it to be pretty fine. You don't want big twigs and stuff, because it's not a big deal if you have little twigs and little stems and stuff in your starting mix. But every one of those twigs, even something small like this little, a little twig like this, it's going to give you hell as you're going through the process for the next 2 or 3 months You'll be picking them out, that kind of thing. So it's really worth screening it. If you have a colander, like in the kitchen, that's got a bunch of the larger holes, that works fine. Now, you don't have any real control over how much nutrition is in this compost, which is why I'm going to recommend you inoculate it. But see, so this compost component here is where you're going to be introducing potential pathogens or fungus and that kind of thing.
Right.
And so coconut coir is usually pretty sterile. Sand is usually pretty sterile. But what I would do is I would actually make this 3-part mix, and I would actually make it in a like large pot, and I would mix it together while it's still dry. And I would put in, this is what I've done, put in a couple liters of tap water, and then I boil it. And so I'm basically sterilizing this entire volume of material. And that will kill all the microbes in the compost, all the funguses, et cetera, et cetera. And so you're basically making like a sterile medium. And then, you let it steam, and I stir it and things like that. And if I'm making soil blocks, which is my preferred method, you want it really wet anyway, because the soil blocks need to be like really wet, like almost like swampy. And if that's the case, you can damn near boil it. You can even add a little bit more coir at the end of this boil process if it was too wet to begin with. You can just use this right now if you're going to be planting some things that already have a lot of nutrients and a lot of energy inside the seed themselves. But there is nutrients here, but if it's all mineral now, because there's no bacterial life now, there's no mycorrhizal fungi or anything. Now you can do fun stuff. Like now you could also dress in, perhaps 6 ounces per large pot worth of like that vegan fertilizer mix, and you can even inoculate it with a quarter cup of like the mycorrhizal fungi starters that are like really becoming popular. And I haven't seen night and day differences from using them, but I just think it's a great idea, and I'll use it even if it doesn't help. And boom! So once this cools off, you've got a lightly fertilized, somewhat mineral organic material containing sterile mix. And if you did all these processes right, you should have a very similar experience to using a pre-sterilized commercial mix, like with like the poultry manure. And it's one of those things where people are going to develop their own methods and processes of doing this to the same level of fine tuning that everyone does for every other process with their garden. But that's pretty much what I'm doing. Is it perfect? No. Is it a little more effort than tearing open a big bag? Yes. But honestly, considering you only need, a couple buckets tops to plant out several hundred plants worth of starts, I don't think it's that difficult. And I've had really good luck with this.
Joe, where can we find you to say hi or to keep up with your garden? Is it if everybody just has to check in with us at the Vegan Homestead, that's okay too? Or do you have any plans to start up anything like a YouTube channel?
Yeah,
I'm sure people would be interested.
Honestly, I would love to, and I'd love to do some podcasting,
Yeah.
If you tell me you want to talk, it's a lot easier, because if I have to tell myself, I better get some content out, it may not happen. I don't have anything I can give you right this second. So maybe by the time this video goes live in a day or two, I can give you at least an Instagram or something.
If not, Joe, it's no worries. If you I don't want to rush you. I'll tell you what. When you do get everything set up and you're ready to go, we'll do another video just introducing the website. Sure. That being said, I'm gonna go and finish up the chores here at the farm and warm up, go home and eat some curry or something. So
sure.
Thanks again for joining me, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again. Very inspiring.
Not a problem.
Have a good night.
Awesome.
So that was a lot of fun hanging out with Joe, and now I have all of the ingredients here to make my very own seed starter mix, which is what we're gonna do in the very next episode. So thanks again, Joe, for hanging out with me on that Skype call, and I can't wait to see what you have in store at your garden this year. Let me know what you think about this video in the comments below, and we'll see you in a couple of days.